Hello, everybody, and welcome back on Plantically. My name is Mo, and today's topic is the Sargasso Sea, or rather, the phenomenon of the Sargasso Sea. Now, what is the Sargasso Sea? It's where the whole entire Central Atlantic, the entire central third of the Atlantic. It encompasses area. If we began in the Caribbean and work ourselves north up the coast of Florida, it and then the currents. With the currents, it works itself up through the entire Atlantic over to the island chain of Micronesia with Madeira and the Canary Islands, Cape Verde Islands, and then again, after we had Africa, the African part of the Atlantic, we go back to South America, to the Caribbean. This entire part of the ocean is considered the Sargasso Sea. Now, it's quite interesting because the sea currents engulf this part of the ocean, so it's rather stagnant. It's still part of the Atlantic, obviously, but the water currents don't mix this part of the ocean together as much, thus causing an effect which, after which, this sea is caught, which obviously Sargasso. It's a it's a it's a seaweed of the Sargasso genus, and essentially it's a seaweed that floats on the water surface, and it's quite an interesting plant. It causes unique habitat for many species, like sea turtles and I believe the American conger eel, for example, and young fish. Uh, the brood can live in that, and it's a unique habitat with which the researchers are studying. And yeah, I like it. For it's just a unique habitat, but also it is very threatened because, as you can imagine, there it is anything that goes in can't can't leave the that Sargasso Sea without additional help. For example, fish, they can propel themselves out with their own force, but the floating seaweed stays in it. It can't leave it. And we all know some other products that float on the water surface, plastic, and thus man-made pollution is threatening that habitat, which is quite saddening to me. For that habitat is there for as long as humanity can remember. For example, in my favorite work of fiction, well, one of my favorite works of fiction, um, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Uh, Part 2, Chapter 11, is titled The Sargasso Sea. And Jules Verne wrote about it. Its characters are in the Sargasso Sea, exploring it, having adventures in it. It's one of my favorite chapters in that book, to be exact. And yes, I think we should have some sort of conservation status upon it. But I think what is quite tricky is the seaweed that's in it. In for the Americans that maybe are watching it have heard of the Sargasso Sea or the Sargasso seaweed in recent times, because there's quite a turmoil in the eastern coast of the United States. For there's not only the Sargasso Sea, but also second, so to speak, Sargasso Sea forming, and it is underneath, so to speak, like geographically further south from the original Sargasso Sea. Researchers are do believe that it formed because of climate change, but researchers aren't sure. It's a recent phenomena, thus new further research has to be applied. But what's essential is that that's not a contained environment like the Sargasso Sea. It's a giant band of that seaweed stretching like a belt from the east coast of South America to the west coast of Africa. And this giant belt of seaweed, you must imagine it that one cluster of that seaweed hangs together and can hang together as groups of about 300 meters long, and this entire mass is shifting towards the coast of the United States. And the bad part about it is that all that biomass is quite well. First and foremost, it has quite a horrible stench as it beaches. And yes, it also generates a lot of biomass, and as it degrades, it produces a lot of greenhouse gases, and all in all, it's just a bad effect. The new Sargasso Sea, so to speak. The old one is perfectly fine, it's interesting, but the new one is towards a collision course against the coast of the United States, and that will not end very well for those living in the Caribbean and the eastern, I believe, eastern part of Florida. And yeah, the Sargasso Sea, it's most interesting that essentially one species of seaweed, one one species of plants can just be this giant mesh of plants of biomass that on the one hand is threatened but also thriving, and is on the one hand causing all this giant and great habitat for other threatened species, but is also itself threatened by pollution. And I think we should keep an eye on it for the Sargasso Sea, and the Sargasso seaweed will be in a lot of news headlines in the coming years. For in recent times, we already see the effects of climate change causing this giant mess that's about to happen in the United States, or rather the coast. And yes, that's what I wanted to talk with you about today. It's a very interesting topic, I believe. And yeah, if you like this sort of content, please subscribe and leave a thumbs up. I will make more uploads about these sorts of topics. If you like them, please comment down below if you have video ideas. And yeah, we will see each other next Friday. Now then, see ya. Bye.